Hey, everybody. This is Tony Dominic.
And Sherry Spencer.
And I'm sitting here on the shore of Lake Erie.
I'm not.
And you're not, because I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy. And we love our lake. And Sherry, tell me what are we gonna talk about today? What's the stories?
Well, first I got to ask you, have you heard of the Avon Lake wine fairies? Okay.
Yes.
Simple yes or no question.
Yes. Well,
okay.
I'm balking because I joined a bunch of men who are an offshoot of the women who are the wine fairies, and I'm up for the bourbon fairy guy. And he hasn't delivered one bottle of bourbon to my house yet, but I'm still hoping.
Well, I must be much luckier than you because I've had 2 wine fairies visit me.
That's because they know you're a wino.
All right. Everybody knows, so if more wine fairies want to come, I'm not going to stop them.
There you go.
So look what one of my wine fairies brought me. Can you see that?
Wow.
It's called 19 Crimes.
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, and it's open. I don't know if somebody opened it.
They probably tasted it before they delivered it just to make sure it was good.
No, they didn't. But because I got that 19 Crimes, that inspired me, and I thought maybe we should talk about some weird old crimes in Avon Lake.
I'm up for that. I've lived through a few of those weird old crimes.
Did you commit any of them?
Probably, but they were in the press.
All right. Well, the one in 1905 that I'm thinking of, I don't think that was you.
No.
Okay, because that was Peter Pitts. Peter Pitts was a young man in his early 20s, described as being of, an impressive build. So like he probably worked outside a lot, strong, hardy. Mm-hmm. And Peter Pitts, unfortunately, took leave of his senses for quite a while.
Must have been a visit from the wine fairies.
You never know.
No.
Went on a rampage
in
Avon Lake. He set fire to a neighbor's house. He piled some rail ties on the Lakeshore Electric Railway tracks, trying to wreck the cars. And he took shots at various townspeople. Good news, he was a terrible shot. So he didn't kill anybody.
We're going to have to keep this on the down low because I don't want my neighbors thinking that this is okay, hey, let's take a shot at Dominic.
Well, you know what? It's not okay because you know what happened as a result of that?
No.
There were 20 townsmen who gathered together, formed a posse, and went after Peter Pitts. They were going to stop him, and they were going to make sure that he didn't repeat any of these crimes. Chased him through a field. Peter was not about to be caught by any posse, so he turned his gun on himself and took his own life.
That's sad.
Yeah,
but
very sad ending.
Don't you wonder? I mean, I understand maybe a little bit the railroad tie thing, but just burning neighbors' houses down and arbitrarily pulling out your heavy artillery and taking pot shots, although that thought has crossed my mind several times in my life. No, just kidding. Just kidding. So that's interesting. What else is going on in our little town back in the day?
You know what? I don't want a subpoena from the Avon Lake Police Department when they come and take my computer. Okay?
Yeah. We don't need to go to jail.
One of the theories was that I read in one of the old newspaper articles that I was surveying was that one of the families who was the target of some of Peter's wrath had a young lady who he thought had jilted him.
Broken heart. The man was a broken heart. It's amazing what people do in the passions of romance. What can I tell you? Whatever that says.
I can sort of see her side of it.
You need some more wine.
I'll still see her side of it.
Yeah. So what else is going on in 1900s?
So, the Lakeshore Electric Railway, while loved by some, was hated by many. And so it was the victim of not just Peter Pitts's crime, but then again in 1908, somebody else who had taken a great disliking to the Lakeshore Electric Railway had put a railroad tie across the track just as there was an approaching Lakeshore Electric rail car, and then he skedaddled, was never caught. We don't know who did it. And it did wreck the car. The conductor fortunately was able to bring the car to a stop in time to not have more serious damage. And there were no fatalities, but there were some injuries.
Good use of the word skedaddle. You just don't hear words like that anymore. You know,
we need to bring those back.
I agree. And I can imagine, you know, this car going 60 miles an hour roughly, you know, that's what they were going. They hit a big old railroad tie going 60 miles an hour. It's going to hurt. It's going to leave a mark. Yeah. You know, so
hey, do you like this? When the rail car, when the Lakeshore Electric rail car hit that rail tie, it went all cattywampus.
Good word. Cattywampus. I remember hearing that word back in the day. But, you know, Avon Lake being, you know, mostly agriculture, farmers and German people who are growing grapes and produce and all that, they weren't real excited about having an electric railroad going through the middle of their farm country. That they were not, it wasn't that like people were going, oh, goody, you know, we're going to have a train in our backyard, you know, was not a popular thing.
You wouldn't enjoy that?
Today, I would absolutely love to see that come back, but
in your backyard?
He couldn't get it in my backyard. But yeah, I get it. Well, it was actually in my grandmother's backyard. And
did you love that?
You know what? We rode on that, you know, track. It was called the tracks. We called it that. We rode our bikes on it. It was all cinders, and it was the old rail bed. So yeah, I can see that. So what else is going on in the 1909s?
Well, in 1916, there was once again a group of men who became very vigilant in Avon Lake because there were chloroform robbers afoot.
What? They were stealing chloroform?
Well, they were using chloroform to steal. They would soak rags with chloroform and they would throw them through people's windows, hoping that the people would lose consciousness and then they could enter their homes and rob them.
And the guy next to him was standing there holding that other guy's beer because, you know, he said, here, hold my beer.
And watch this.
And watch this. Because there is no way a handkerchief full of chloroform is going to do anything to anybody.
Well, apparently you could not convince the robbers of that because this chloroform robbery technique was a thing.
What?
And not
like emoticons and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It was a thing?
No, it was popular.
Oh.
It was popular. And in the 1920s, you saw a lot of these chloroform robberies going on in Lorraine, but it was Illaria who really was ahead of the game because they had chloroform robberies going on in 1906.
You know what? I missed that chapter of the history books when Mr. McCoy taught me Ohio history. We never talked about any chloroform bandits, but, you know, each to his own, I guess.
You know, don't you hate when people tinker with history and they leave out important things?
Yeah. Chloroform. Who'd have thunk it, right?
So that wasn't all, okay?
Oh, there's more. There's 8. Well, there's got to be 17 more then.
Okay. Well, there was also chicken stealing, and there were horse thieves, and there were barn burnings going on in Avon Lake.
Barn burnings? Why would they burn a barn unless they were? I know, fried chicken.
I can't wait.
Fried chicken. They were trying to get those chickens, and so they burnt the barns. You know, how would you can't brand a chicken, right? I mean,
no, that's chicken barbecue.
If you were walking down the street and you had this book under your arm, how would you not know? How would you know if that was your chicken or their chicken? I mean, if you've been following us, Sherry, didn't we just do a story on 30,000 chickens on Walker Road?
Yeah, well, I'm sure those were much better guarded than some.
I don't know. Chickens, who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, yeah. There were chicken thieves.
Well, there's a lot going on. Stealing horses, that's, we all kind of hear about that stuff. It's the old West kind of thing. And that was like stealing a car, before we had cars.
That's right.
That was never a very, people didn't look on that crime with a big smile.
Nope.
So what else? I know we had prohibition. We had all kinds of heads being bashed in.
Yeah, well, okay, this one's not a head basher, but
All right.
if you were sitting in the back of the courtroom during sessions of mayor's court, you probably would hear multiple times that someone was charged with the offense of keeping a disorderly house.
Oh my God, we'd be locked up.
Instead we're locked down.
Yeah, because our house has been so disorderly that it's hard sometimes to get from one room to the other. So I'd be in jail.
No, they didn't mean that kind of disorderly.
Oh.
Yeah. What they meant was booze parties.
Booze parties?
Booze parties. So you'd probably still be in jail, right?
Yeah. I've had a few of those and been to a few of those. I'm not a big drinker now, but there was a day when,
Been to mayor's court?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So booze parties is called disorderly house. I like that. I like that.
Keeping a disorderly house.
That's like cattywampus, kind of the same kind of thing.
Sure.
You really hate me. I know you do. Anyway, go ahead. What's next?
All right. Well, then this is a really funky one. In 1934, two guys who bombed the Avon Lake power lines.
There was two guys that actually bombed them?
They actually bombed the Avon Lake power lines.
That makes complete sense. I have a photograph that I bought, believe it or not, on eBay, where I find a great deal of vintage Avon Lake history of a gentleman being arrested, I think it was just a detective looking at a bombed power line stanchion, because people in the same way they didn't much care for the electric railway, they really didn't want power lines going through their farm country. And so I don't have any idea of why they bombed this, but my guess would be that it had to do with not in my backyard. Kind of what we were doing with microwave towers a few years back. Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't quite hit 19 crimes, but we hit quite a few, and we can maybe revisit this. And
you can go back and have a few more hits off of that, and we'll see if we can. Right. Well, everybody, thanks a lot. I want to take a moment to thank Sherry Spencer. Sherry has been very important to the success of these videos. Sherry, without your intellect and reading and research and sharing stories, we all learn a little bit more about our history. So I thank you for doing that. This is Tony Tominick and
Sherry Spencer
saying that was our 1 minute of Avon Lake history or something like that. But it was more than like 10 minutes. So who cares? Bye-bye.
Bye.